fully for
We'll start in another 5 minutes, so kindly call anybody of anyone of your friends who's yet to join. Hi, hello everyone. We are presenting the CV workshop by for consulting by BnC. Today we have amongst us three of the people from MBBs. We have Anya Kurana ma'am, who is from McKinsey. We have Abhinav Gupta sir, who had an internship from Bain, and now he is in Ola Founders Office. And we have Shiv Malhotra sir, who is in BCG currently. We have them today, and they will discuss it with the secrets of consulting CVs and how an interviewer or an evaluator actually analyzes a consulting CV. And we will be the flow of the session will be one, the discussion of the general CV template of how a consulting CV goes. Second, diving deep into each section of the consulting CV. And thirdly, we'll be analyzing some of the consulting CVs and answering your questions according to whatever your questions are. A request from my side is you don't intervene during the session going on, and just whatever the questions you have, just put it in the chat and we'll take in the questions at the end of the session. We'll start by the introduction of each one of you guys. Uh, First, we have Anya ma'am with us. Anya ma'am, if you could just introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Anya. I graduated last year and I joined McKinsey as a business analyst. So I did my intern in 2024. And it's great that we're having this session because I think a lot of people have a lot of doubts as to how they should go about thinking about their CV to optimize their chances of getting shortlisted by the top firms. And also how the process of vetting your CV via your seniors and especially your club seniors should be. So I think it'll be very helpful for all of you if you just stay synced into the session and ask whatever questions you have at the end.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have Abhinav Gupta sir and Shiv Malhotra sir. Abhinav sir, if you could just give your brief intro.
Yeah, hey, hi guys. I am Abhinav. I interned at BnN Company in my third year.
and currently working at Ola Founders Office. I think I have been watching this session from the past 2 years when our seniors were delivering it, and I'm very happy to be a part of the same now.
Thank you, sir. And we also have Shiv Malhotra sir with us, who is currently in BCG. Sir, you could just give us an intro.
Now am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, you're audible.
Just a moment. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Shiv Malhotra. I actually interned at Boston Consulting Group in my third year and got a PPO from there. So now I'm waiting for my joining. अभी तक आई नहीं है. But yeah, that's there. बाकी thank you for having me यार. Grateful to be a part of this. शुरू करते हैं.
Yes, we can start with the like basic description of the CVs first. मतलब जिसको भी आप में से start करना है can start. Yeah.
Shiv, do you want to go first?
Sure. यार ठीक है. अभिनव, can you present a template या फिर मनन, can you present a template of a CV एक बार? I'll just
I
quickly
have a
go over
very
all.
old CV with me. I'll just present that.
Cool.
So just give me a second.
Cool.
Just a second. Is this visible now?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, this is a very
Cool.
old CV, so वो issue नहीं आएगा.
चलो गाइस, तो यार ठीक है, मैं ऊपर से एक बार बता देता हूँ पहले. तो essentially every consulting CV has 5 sections, मोटा if I include CGPA as a section अलग से. So the 5 sections are CGPA, calls, as you can see, internships, POR or ECS, right? So to get shortlisting MBPs में या फिर even any other consulting firm, you'll have to cross a threshold in all of the sections, right? तो एक certain score के ऊपर हर section में अगर होता है तो overall shortlist आती है, right? Ups and downs होते हैं, एक बार deep dive कर लेंगे हर section में तो better clarity मिल जाएगी. ठीक है. GPA तो चिल है, on a scale of 10 जो होती है कॉलेज की. स्कॉलास्टिक अचीवमेंट्स में बहुत सारी चीज़ें आती हैं यार. कुछ बेसिक चीज़ें जैसे स्कॉलरशिप्स होती हैं, कुछ तुम्हारे NTSC KVPY ओलंपियाड्स एंड ऑल होते हैं, राइट? कुछ ये माइनर डिग्रीज होती हैं, बट ठीक है, दैट कम्स एट ड्यूरिंग द टाइम ऑफ प्लेसमेंट्स, इंटर्न में नहीं होता है. कॉन्फ्रेंसेज होती हैं थोड़ी बहुत, कुछ रिसर्च पेपर वगैरह अगर होता है, डिपार्टमेंट रैंक होती है, दैट इज़ अ वेरी गुड स्कॉल. फॉरेक्स इज़ अ गुड स्कॉल. ठीक है. उसके अलावा स्कॉलरशिप अगर कोई ऑन कैंपस मिली है तो ऑनेस्टली जो फर्स्ट सेकंड ईयर में तुम्हें मिले होते हैं ना स्कॉल्स, उनकी वेटेज थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा होती है. बाकी स्कूल टाइम के स्कॉल्स की इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं होती है. लोग बस एज फिलर स्कॉल CBSE वगैरह लिख देते हैं, बट अगेन उनकी वेटेज थोड़ी कम होती है, राइट? मूविंग ऑन टू इंटर्नशिप्स यार लोग 2 से 3 डालते हैं. तो लास्ट दो सालों के ट्रेंड में ऐसा होने लगा है कि लोग 3 इंटर्नशिप्स डालने लगे, और एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम तक लोग 2 ही डालते थे. तो 3 इंटर्नशिप्स डालना इट्स गुड टू हैव 3 इंटर्नशिप्स, राइट? थोड़ा सा इंटर्नशिप्स, द फंडामेंटल आइडिया इज कि यार थोड़ा सा तुम्हें इस सेक्शन को ना डाइवर्सिफाई अगर करके दिखाओ तो ओवरऑल इम्पैक्ट ज्यादा दिखता है. एज एन इफ यू हैव वन कॉर्पोरेट इंटर्नशिप, एक अगर तुम्हारा कोई लेट्स से कोई अकेडमिक इंटर्नशिप है, राइट? किसी प्रोफेसर के अंडर प्रोजेक्ट था, दैट वाज कन्वर्टेड इनटू एन इंटर्नशिप. कुछ लोग सूरा एज एन इंटर्नशिप भी लिखते हैं, ठीक है? कुछ लोग फॉरेन यूनिवर्सिटीज में जाके ऑन साइड इंटर्न करते हैं, तो अगेन उसकी बहुत ज़्यादा वैल्यू होती है, ठीक है? देन मूविंग ऑन टू PORs, कॉलेज POR स्टैंडर्ड यार. तो फंडामेंटल आइडिया अगेन यही होता है कि थर्ड ईयर की अगर एक अच्छी POR हो, डिसेंट POR हो, बाकी सेकेंड ईयर की एक आध POR हो, तो काम चल जाता है. अगेन POR ECS का मेजर आइडिया यही होता है कि एक ऊपर से थोड़ी सी स्टोरी लाइन दिखनी चाहिए, राइट? तो पूरी इफ यू हैव लेट्स से इफ यू आर इन्वॉल्व इन सर्टेन कल्चरल क्लब, ठीक है, कोई BRC क्लब का तुम पार्ट हो, कोई रेप थे, तो इफ यू हैव सर्टेन ECAs इन द सेम क्लब, तो ओवरऑल इम्पैक्ट थोड़ा ज़्यादा दिखता है उसका, राइट? तो जैसे CV के अंदर आई कैन सी को टीम मेंबर, रॉन्डेवू, पब्लिसिटी कोऑर्डिनेटर. तो जैसे ये फेस्ट का थोड़ा सा वो ज़्यादा है, राइट? थोड़ा सा idea. You get the idea, right? मतलब publicity coordinator 2 बार, Speranza artist, and then core team member at Rendezvous, marketing and publicity, and then ment secretary. तो ये तो चलो placement की CV है, थोड़ा सा overwhelming लगेगा, but मोटा मोटा आइडिया यही होता है यार. बाकी ECAs में अगेन लोग 2-3 सेक्शन रखते हैं, 2 सेक्शन एवरेज होते हैं, कुछ कुछ लोग 3 सेक्शन भी रखते हैं. ठीक है, तो अगर तुम्हारे पास कोई कल्चरल क्लब हो का एक स्पेसिफिक क्लब में अगर तुम बहुत एज कर रहे हो, ठीक है, फॉर एग्जांपल मैं म्यूजिक क्लब में इन्वॉल्व था, तो लोग उसके एसीएस रखते हैं. क्यूएलडी के एसीएस की काफ़ी ज़्यादा वैल्यू होती है कंपैरेटिवली. ठीक है, डिबेटिंग की बहुत ज़्यादा वैल्यू होती है. ठीक है, बाकी स्पोर्ट्स अगर कोई मचा रहा है, स्पोर्ट्स में कुछ कुछ कर रहा है, तो स्पोर्ट्स के 3 4 4 5 ईसीएस रखो, तो ओवरऑल इम्पैक्ट थोड़ा ज़्यादा दिखता है. ठीक है, मैकेंजी स्पोर्ट्स को थोड़ा प्रेफर करती है. अगेन कंपनी वाइज डीप डाउन आ जाएंगे थोड़ा सा बाद में, डीप डाउन पे आ जाएंगे बाद में, बट मोटा मोटा यही आइडिया है. बाकी केस कॉम्पिटिशन्स होते हैं, लोग 3 4 4 5 केस कॉम्पिटिशन्स रखते हैं. कुछ लोग सोशल एंडेवर्स भी ऐड करते हैं. ठीक है, मेंटर वगैरह लिख देते हैं, बाकी कुछ एनएसएस वगैरह की एसीएस लिख देते हैं. अगेन थोड़े से फिलर ही होते हैं वो भी, बट मोटा मोटा यही आइडिया यार कि ये पूरी सीवी के 5 सेक्शन एक लेट्स से 50 के स्केल पे ग्रेड होते हैं. perhaps 10 could be the rating of every. Again, इनकी वेटेज वैरी करती है across companies, but एक certain score के ऊपर if you lie तो shortlist आती है. एंड शॉर्टलिस्टिंग के बाद तुम लोग को, ठीक है, एक बार प्रोसेस भी आगे बता देंगे. एक बार शॉर्टलिस्ट आती है, फिर बड़ी राउंड स्टार्ट होते हैं, देन बड़ी केसेस होते हैं, 4 5 केसेस होते हैं बडीज के साथ, एंड देन फिर फाइनल इंटरव्यू होता है. तो कुछ टेस्ट वगैरह नहीं होता है कंसल्टिंग में, अनलाइक अदर टेक्निकल या फिर फाइनेंस फर्म्स. ओएज नहीं होते हैं, बस सीवी शॉर्टलिस्टिंग होती है डायरेक्टली. तो कुछ मैंने मिस करा है तो अभी ना वाने आपको कवर करना है, और ऊपर से तो कर दो. बाकी डीप डाइव पे आ ही जाएंगे सबके.
Yeah, I think that was a good overview of how the CV is marked per se. Baki, we can go through section by section, but before we do that, I also want to talk about the process that you have to go through while you are making this CV. तो जब भी कोई CV बनाता है, obviously they don't make this in one go. And as you might also notice कि all lines are starting से and they're ending, एकदम last word is ending uh, एकदम line के end में. So all of these adjustments also take time. I think ideally my recommendation to how you should go about the CV making process is that you can count the number of lines that are there in this CV right now. These are the same number of lines you will have whenever the portal opens for you, and make a rough sketch of how many lines do you have of things that you definitely want to write on your CV. And I think these are around 50 lines. तुम्हारे पास 30 40 45 लाइन्स होंगी जो तुम्हें पता होंगी ये तो मुझे लिखनी ही है. एंड उसके बाद देन यू शुड स्टार्ट फाइंडिंग थिंग्स दैट यू कैन राइट इन द लाइन्स जो वाइट स्पेस बन सकती है. तो दोज कुड बी थिंग्स दैट यू आर इनडिसाइसिव अबाउट. फॉर एग्जांपल एच पेयर स्कॉलरशिप, बहुत लोग जैसे एच पेयर यूएस कॉन्फ्रेंस लिखा हुआ है, थर्ड स्कॉल पॉइंट. Now this is something a lot of people have, but you need not necessarily write it because this is not adding to spikes in your CV. So you can have a lot of fillers that are available to you and then later decide इनमें से कौन सी चीज लिखनी है. And all of this is good to do before the portal opens, because उसके बाद when the portal opens you have to make 6 7 CVs, and this is the first time you are formally making a CV. So that takes up a lot of your time. So first make a rough sketch of all the lines that you want to write, and उस basis पे you can also vet your story with seniors अभी से थोड़ा थोड़ा कि तुम्हारी सीवी पे 3 interns बेटर लगेंगी या 2 interns बेटर लगेंगी. आई वुड हाईली रिकमेंड एक मत लिखना, दो तो लिखना ही, बट 2 interns लिखनी है या 3 लिखनी है, फिर ईसीए कितना बड़ा लिखना है, and you'll have a better idea of how the skeleton would be made. Then once the portal opens, so obviously make one draft yourself. Try to gather थोड़े से seniors की CVs, and I would recommend अभी से मांगने लग जाओ for at least seniors that you are close to. I don't think anybody minds sending out their CV, and obviously don't share it with other people if they say so. But थोड़ा try to read their CV and try to see how they have written things. So all lines are starting with strong action words, and again, there are certain things that you will note. There is a star framework. All of this we can cover in the deep dive. But broadly, then you make your first draft and try to make your first draft as soon as possible, and then just start sending out your CV to seniors so that you can have multiple iterations. So for me personally, I remember that my final consulting CV was draft 10 or 11 of the iteration process, and it genuinely takes the life out of you for 1 week because हर सीनियर कुछ कुछ अलग अलग चेंजेस रेकमेंड करेगा। एक चेंज किसी सीनियर को अच्छा लगा है, दूसरा सीनियर मना कर देगा ये मत करो। एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट टेक्स अप अ लॉट ऑफ योर टाइम एंड एनर्जी, तो इट्स बेटर कि डू एज मच एज यू कैन बिफोर द पोर्टल ओपन्स। एंड वंस ऑल ऑफ दैट हैपेंस, सो इन द एंड सीनियर गाइडेंस के साथ एवरीथिंग कम्स इन शेप। But this is broadly the process. I think Anya can take up something after this.
Yeah, so just to add a few important points here as to what spikes mean. So, spikes are your distinctive sections out of these five sections in the CV, right? So Shiv walked you through these five sections, and हम सबको खुद भी पता होता है कि हमारे CV में हमारा spike कौन सा है. So it's very important to allocate sufficient real estate on the page to your spikes, right? That's point one. So you have to do justice to wherever you are distinctive. Like if you have a distinctive POR, or if you have distinctive national ECAs, then there should be sufficient space to talk about them. So it's a very good idea to start off, make a list of all the laundry points which you want to cover, and then cut off depending on कितना आप उनको prioritization देना चाहते हो. And yes, I agree with Abhinav, you should start well in advance, because एक तो you'll be swamped with making so many different kinds of CVs. So in the end, it gets very overwhelming personally. That's one. Second, you all might be doing second year interns also while you're handling the CV making process. Hence, it's very reasonable to start at a point of time where you know you have sufficient time for lots of revisions. Because I think मेरी भी जो मैंने CV submit की थी end में, that was easily the 8th 9th version, if not more. And every senior जिसको तुम CV भेजोगे, they will have different specific kind of inputs. तो उस process तक पहुंचने के लिए, where you are in the position to actually get a lot of feedback from seniors, you have to give them your CV well in advance to give them time to give feedback, because they're also most likely working. Hence, you'll have to start well in advance. तो plan करके रखो a few weeks in advance, 3 4 weeks, as to when you'll pick up each stage of the CV making process. So make that schedule mentally in your head. And if we come to the language of the CV, there are a few things you should keep under consideration. One of which is how you're framing every point. So, for example, in your internships, a very good feedback that I got from one of my seniors was that every point should be very impact oriented. So you start with the impact, achieved XX crore, or improved the efficiency of this process by XX% by implementing so and so process, which is also what we do a lot in consulting, right? There is top down communication. So we start with the impact, and then we talk about what brought about that impact. So that language of how you write every section in the CV, which is more impact led, impact followed by the initiative that you implemented, that is a language that you should standardize across different sections of your CV. So that is one of the best CV making practices, which we can then cover in our subsequent deep dives. But one more point here, I think you should also get your CV vetted by a lot of seniors from your specific clubs. Say, for example, if you have a DebSoc ECA heavy CV, then please make sure कि DebSoc के कुछ 5 6 seniors from +1 +2 are vetting that specific section, because they know how to write that section best. तो आपके जो work experience में आपके core seniors हैं, उनसे make a list of those seniors and make sure that you have sufficient time, that you've notified them well in advance कि आप मेरी CV please vet कर लेना, because that is very important. The feedback that you get will lead to an iteration of the CV, which will be very different from the CV you've prepared first on your own. So make sure your planning is done well in advance to incorporate the schedules of your 15 20 seniors as well. That is something people usually take lightly, but that's very important.
Okay, that's like now let's start section wise. So first of all, CGPA का in a brief, whatever you can sum up, majorly तो आपको पता ही है, and उसके अलावा जो भी specific company wise कुछ CGPA restrictions होती हैं वो आप बता दो.
ठीक है, I think
Yeah,
I'll take this.
I can start. अच्छा
Yeah.
ठीक है, Shiv, you can start.
Nah, please, Anya, go ahead. बताओ.
Yeah, so see, there are no restrictions in consulting. I know people with a CV of 7 who've gotten shortlisted. I also know people with a CV of 9 plus. So I don't think there are hard cutoff boundaries in consulting. That being said, obviously, the higher your CG, the better. That goes without saying. But I think if even if the CG section is not a spike, but the other sections like maybe your internships or your PORs are distinctive, then I think the CV does stand a good chance in consulting. It may be different for other sectors like quant and tech, but I think for consulting, even if the CG is not very distinctive, like 8.5 plus, people still do have a chance if they're their other sections are distinctive. Shiv, you can take it up.
Yeah. I think that's true, yeah. Overall, I think if you have 2 to 3 spikes overall out of the 5 sections that are there, so you stand a good chance to get at least a couple of shortlists out of the 5, 7 companies that show up, right? But I think a good threshold, मतलब people, at least in the last couple of years, जो हमने trend देखा है, वो यही है कि 8+ people को थोड़ी preference मिलती है, that is true. But it's not that अगर 8+ नहीं है तो नहीं आएगी shortlist. I think last year even Strat and LK did not shortlist more than 2 people below 7.5. So that is one thing. But uh, that's okay. अगर नहीं भी है 7.5 या 8 नहीं है, that's okay. Obviously, like Anya mentioned, बाकी sections में अगर spike आ रहा है, intern बहुत ज़्यादा मचा हुआ है, PO or ECAs, if you're good, if they're good enough, तो you stand a good chance to get a shortlist at least in one of the companies, right? बाकी that being said, again, the higher the better. वो तो true है ही. At least जिनकी I think 8+ है तो you all stand definitely a very good chance to get a shortlist in all of the companies. बाकी again it's a game of all the 5 sections यार, तो सिर्फ एक से इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ता है overall. मतलब हाँ, again there's a, like I mentioned, एक 7.5 तक का threshold I think I would say, उसके ऊपर फिर बाकी sections अगर अच्छे हैं तो you stand a good chance to get a shortlist.
ठीक है,
I think
I
I'm
think we can.
think,
Okay.
बोलो आने बोलो आप बोलो.
हाँ, मतलब I think just to add, we are all in the position to calibrate how good the CG is for us. So if it's a spike for you, great. If it's a spike for you, then just mentally decide, okay, if CG is good, then these other 2 sections should be a spike for me. So then invest more of your time, energy, even time from your seniors to understand how you can better frame those sections. तो वो थोड़ा internally calibrate करके करना चाहिए, चलना चाहिए, that I know that for me these are my 3 spikes, these are my 2 relatively weak sections, and how should I go about strengthening my spikes as much as possible. That should be your focus.
And
Okay,
I
Abhinav,
think
you
yes,
had something to say.
yeah. I was saying just to close the loop, at least on the CG section. I think CGs are getting inflated every year. So आने के year में से हमारे year में थोड़ी सी inflate हुई. Then हमारे से हमारे -1 में inflate हुई. And तुम्हारे year में I think और ज़्यादा inflated है. So I would expect कि at least MBBs are going to have a cutoff of 8. That being said, there could be outliers जिनकी overall story is shining so bright कि despite say 7.9, 7.8 CGPA, they're getting shortlist. But in general, be prepared in your mind, or do expect that anybody who's getting an MBB shortlist without a 8 CG has to be an outlier in some of the other sections, probably 2 or 3 of the other sections. And that is just for your mental preparation. And तुम case prep फिर उसी expectations and hopes के साथ start करो. That is one. But second is कि because CGs are inflating, तो पहले एलिगे स्टार्ट 7+ में यूजुअली कर लेती थी शॉर्टलिस्ट. इन योर ईयर, गिवन दैट दे आर फर्दर मोर इन्फ्लेटेड, आई थिंक 7.5 के आसपास वो भी एक थ्रेशोल्ड रखेंगे. अगेन देयर विल बी आउटलायर्स, देयर विल बी पीपल जिनके 7.5 से कम हो गए एंड दे विल गेट शॉर्टलिस्ट. बट जस्ट नो दैट इट इज गुड टू हैव, एंड you can expect that threshold to be there to some extent from their side. बाकी तो every year it changes थोड़ा थोड़ा across companies also, because from the back end, from my understanding, different people are given the responsibility of designing the CV shortlisting process. So either it could be very standardized and there could be a scoring system that they might use depending upon the person who's leading it, or they can leave it up to the different people who will score you. So depending on that, there is some variation every year. But yeah, the standard practice is a recommended 8+ CG for MBBs and a 7.5+ for Strat-LK. And for Accenture, the process is a little different. And for Nomura, usually 7+ is good enough.
एक before we jump into the next section, एक अविनाश सर की तरफ से रिक्वेस्ट है, काइंडली टर्न ऑन योर कैमरास इफ यू कैन, बिकॉज उनको थोड़ा सा ऐसे फीलिंग नहीं आ रही कि 1-to-1 इंटरेक्शन हो रही है. सो एसेंशियली आई वुड रिकमेंड कि अगर इफ यू कैन काइंडली टर्न ऑन योर कैमरास एवरीबॉडी.
हाँ यार, honestly, I feel like I'm talking to Shiv only because मुझे सिर्फ वही दिखाई दे रहा है. So
ठीक है, jumping on to the next section, that is called, let's start with Abhinav sir and then follow, या मतलब कोई भी एक start करके then next can continue.
ठीक है, I can add this up for you. There are two types of scholars: pre-college scholars and post-college scholars. Pre-college scholars are all your Olympiads and any scholarships that you might have had, NTSC, KVPY, or any IOQPI, IOQC, IOQM, all the renowned national Olympiads, or JSTSC, NSTSC, whatever, NSCJS. So if you have any renowned Olympiads, so they are good to have pre-college calls. I think तुम्हारे year में NTSC KVPY हुआ ही नहीं था, तो that would be a common hit that all of your year would take. But then there are post-college calls. Post-college calls are usually Forex, DR, Sura, Sem Merit, and then dual degrees might also have with the Renaissance, some of them. But again, other scholarships, there are a lot of scholarships that are floated around. So those are also good calls. Then if you're going for a research internship and you have got some sort of grant, then that could also be a call. And mostly then these are the scores that are considered to be particularly good scores, but then there are also filler scores. I would recommend you to write at least 5 to 6 calls, at least 5 calls, and probably not more than 7 calls. Your good to have scores are the ones that I just told you, and then you can have some filler scores, such as, say, you might have had some good performance in your CBSE boards, और some letter of recommendation from a prof जिसके कोर्स में तुमने 10 सी मारी होगी या कुछ उस टाइप का. तो again then there is H pair. So these are some filler calls that you can use. Again, these will not help to spike your call section, but if you have 3 to 4 good calls in your first 5 to 6 calls, so that is usually considered good enough. And scalds are usually treated as like in combination with your CG, because a lot of scalds are derived from your CG. So a lot of times both of those sections go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think यार
Now,
सब कुछ cover कर ही दिया mostly calls में अभिनव ने. Yeah man, you're saying something?
I was just asking if you and or Anima would like to add something.
हाँ, cool. I think यार mostly सारे calls cover कर ही दिए हैं. I would just like to add कि again हाँ, I think ये NTSC and KVPY तुम लोगों के ईयर में नहीं हुआ है, so that is one thing. उसके अलावा मेजरली जो पोस्ट कॉलेज कॉल्स है, जिस कॉलेज के टाइम में लास्ट के एटलीस्ट तुम्हारे इंटर्न वालों के 2 साल में और फिर डुअल वालों के लिए 3 सालों में जो तुमने कॉल्स इकट्ठे करे हैं, उनकी वेटेज अगेन थोड़ी ज़्यादा होती है. कॉल्स इज वन ऑफ द सेक्शन जहाँ सब मतलब मोस्टली 50-60% ऑफ द कोहॉर्ट जो बैठती है कंसल्टिंग के लिए, उनका स्कॉल सेक्शन थोड़ा वीक होता है रिलेटिवली, राइट. अगेन स्कॉल्स एंड सीजी को हैंड इन हैंड. तुम्हारी 8+ है तो स्कॉल ज़्यादा होंगे, 8.5+ है तो और ज़्यादा होंगे, 9+ है तो बहुत ज़्यादा होंगे. बट या मोटा मोटा यही यार, अगर इफ यू डोंट हैव अ लॉट ऑफ गुड स्कॉल्स, इट इज़ गुड टू हैव 2 to 3 गुड स्कॉल्स एंड बाकी यू कैन यूज फिलर स्कॉल्स लाइक एच पेयर, AIBC कॉन्फ्रेंस होती है, ठीक है. बाकी आई थिंक ये सिमुलेशन प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं, जैसे गोल्डमैन सैक्स का आई थिंक इसमें लिखा हुआ है, ठीक है. बाकी कुछ स्कॉलरशिप्स होती हैं और स्कूल टाइम से फिटजी की स्कॉलरशिप कुछ लोग लिखते हैं, अपनी कोचिंग की स्कॉलरशिप कुछ लोग लिखते हैं, CBSE मेरिट होता है, राइट. सो स्टफ लाइक दैट कुड बी, मतलब देयर अगेन they won't help you spike the section, but 2 to 3 good calls अगर हैं तो I think it's fine, it's all right. Anya, would you like to
Uh,
add something?
Yeah, I think it's covered. This is a relatively simple section, but
Yeah.
remember when you're structuring your scalds, like the order in which you write your scalds has two main parameters. One is, of course, recency. So post college, जैसे if you have an endowment merit or semester merit, DR, Sura, they have more weightage than your pre-college scalds. And then, of course, in your post and pre, देखो कि scald कितना मचा हुआ है. For example, I'd say if you have a very good DR, like a top 3 TR, that is a very much house call to have compared to, let's say, a Sura. And pre-college, then of course a very good IOQP, IOQC rank is better than like a CBSE merit scholarship. So then you should also structure your scores according to how distinctive they are. But otherwise, I think it's very good. It's a spike if you have like 3 to 4 solid scores, and you should have at least 5 scores. वरना वो section थोड़ा ज़्यादा छोटा लगता है.
I think just a small thing to add here, for you to assess कि कौन सा स्कॉल मचा हुआ है and कौन सा नहीं है, you can simply think of it this way कि वो जितना स्कार्स है वो स्कॉल वो उतना मचा हुआ है. So for example, DR3 कितने ही लोगों की होगी कैंपस में, तो DR3 is more valuable compared to the number of people who do Sura, and you can extrapolate this logic to us कौन सा. इतना मचा हुआ है. But obviously you can't argue कि HP 10 ही लोगों के पास होगा तो मचा उसको अलग.
Let's proceed with the next section, that is internship. कोई भी एक start कर दो please. I think Anya ma'am can start with this one.
Yeah, sure. So, for internships, I know the recently emerging trend is that people tend to write 2 or 3 internships because it shows more work experience. I personally just wrote 1 internship. I had a foreign research internship. So, pehle to I don't think it's mandatory to have 3 internships to write. Even if you have two, or even if you have a good single internship, I don't think you should get discouraged. That's one. But internship section may think about the main outcome being that you want to show them that you have delivered impact and you have delivered a distinctive performance as a first time professional. That is what they're trying to see. So I had a research internship, which is not, you can say the context is not directly applicable in consulting, which is more corporate. But how you should think about your internship section is कि जो पढ़ रहा है उसको देख के समझ आ जाना चाहिए that okay, in the span of 2 months this person achieved this is the milestone this person achieved, and this is the process through which they achieved it. So जैसे even if you read this line, achieved a 27% reduction in utilities and savings of this by improving operational efficiency. So internships में the way you write every point is very important. As I said, it starts with the impact, achieved 27% reduction, and then talks about the underlying process which underwrote that impact, which is improving operational efficiency, etc., etc. So make it very impact oriented. Show what you have achieved by doing which process exactly. Here it's helpful if you can quantify numbers. Just say achieved this much reduction, got this much cost saving. If you worked in a marketing agency, then you developed 15 new leads. So it's very helpful to have numbers here. That is something you'll see in a lot of CVs. If you read your senior CVs, जितना भी आप quantify करते हो उतना सामने वाले के लिए समझना ज़्यादा easy होता है that okay, this is the impact that they got in their internship. So it's very important that you talk about what impact you delivered, not just what you learned personally. Like I learned an algorithm, I developed a mathematical construct, etc., etc. But usse impact kya aaya? How did you help that field? Because consulting by itself is a very impact oriented job, right? Because you have to achieve impact for clients. तो वैसे सोचो that मेरी internship का value add क्या था? How did I add value? And how did I utilize my degree, my education to add value? So if you can tie those things together to bring about a story that this is my strength, which I brought to my internship, I learned this new thing, hence I got this impact. If that story is visible, then that internship in your internship section, according to me, becomes a strong point for you. That being said, if you got some output out of your internship, which could be like a scholarship or a letter of recommendation, then it's helpful to add that in italics. जैसे इन्होंने यहाँ किया है, received a letter of recommendation from the plant head. But also again, please keep in mind बहुत riffraff मत लिख देना इस section में, because you might be questioned on your internship during your interview as well. For example, the partner who was interviewing me pulled out my CV during the interview and then asked me a few questions about my internship. So please be prepared to talk about whatever you've written in your internship section. I think guys, if you want to add something else, I don't have anything else for this section.
Shiv, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I think recently emerging trend यही है कि people tend to write at least 2 internships in the CV, right? मतलब even last year majority of the CVs had three internships. It's okay even if you have, like Anya mentioned, अगर एक भी impactful enough internship है, so that's okay. अब impactful कितनी आ रही है, again this is very subjective, right? All of these sections again are very subjective, but majorly as far as my understanding goes, मुझे तो यही समझ में आता है कि foreign on-site internships are relatively काफी good, right? And then good corporates. See, obviously, if you're writing a PwC या फिर EY internship, तो people subjectively you know कि मतलब पापा ने लगवाई होगी या किसी रिश्तेदार ने लगवाई होगी, right? वो चलता है, वो होता है. And I think last year EY internship बहुत लोगों ने लिख ली थी, तो उसकी value again थोड़ी सी कम हो गई थी. But majorly the trend is even if you're interning in at a startup, let's say, right? तो अगर वो कितना impactfully you're working, that really matters. The numbers that are there on this CV, ठीक है, indicate कि कितना impactful था वो internship, right? So numbers, you'll see a lot of numbers in the internship and the POR section, right? So impact driven कितना काम है, that matters more than the again but brand name people prefer having at least one internship with a good brand name. It could be like, let's say, agar, if you're working in a foreign let's say research school, तो फिर तो अच्छी बात है, ठीक है, on site it's very good. अगर तुम remotely कर रहे हो तो you might want to have a good corporate internship, right? Could be one of the big fours. It could be any internship. Like I did an internship in HDFC Bank, right? तो again it does not matter बहुत ज़्यादा यार, again but कितना impactful था वो काम, that matters more obviously. बाकी I think I've pretty much covered almost everything. इसके अलावा यार, हाँ, तो जैसे ये 2 से 3 लाइन लिखी हुई है ना हर एक इंटर्नशिप सेक्शन के बाद, सो लाइक आई थिंक आन्या मोस्टली कवर्ड ऑल ऑफ द थिंग्स, बट ये रिसीव्ड अ लेटर ऑफ रिकमेंडेशन वगैरह जो इटैलिक्स में नीचे एडेड पॉइंटर्स है ना, सो दे जस्ट रिफ्लेक्ट दैट तुमने जो भी काम करा दैट वाज इम्पैक्टफुल इनफ. सो इट इज गुड टू हैव LORs या फिर कुछ भी impactful merit certificates वगैरह जो तुम्हें कंपनी से मिलते हैं, that is good to it is good to have that. जैसे I think again this is a placement CV, तो इसमें नोमुरा के नीचे awarded PPO लिखा हुआ है, I think okay PPI लिखा हुआ है, so that is a good point to have. इसके अलावा I think if you have 2 good internships यार, again diversified across academic and corporate, that is pretty much ideal in my opinion. बाकी Abhinav, you want to cover anything, please go ahead.
Sure. I think Anna and Shiv have covered a lot of things. Just to uh, iterate on one of the things that Shiv said about what kind of internships might spike in your CV. So obviously, foreign research interns and things of those sort, at least the on-site ones are a spike. Then interns in Big Fours or any VCs are also spikes. Now, if it is not any of these, so from what I have seen, the reason why big brand internships are more likely to spike, say, than work that you do at startup, or at least my hypothesis on that is that ultimately after 9 to 10 iterations of your CV, whichever firm that you have worked at, you are able to write 3 lines, such as whatever is written on the screen, where you pick something that your team was trying to solve and you give them numbers that this is how much your team has contributed, and you write all of that on your CV as part of your work. Now, the problem is that everybody is then able to at least write some impact, whether or not they have done it. It might not necessarily prepare you for how well you can answer questions if your CV is taken out in interviews, but it does then create a difference, at least in the shortlisting process, where there is no way to assess whether or not you have contributed in that. So that is why say kind of impact that you write, say in a startup, which is also something that OCS will eventually brief you about, or they have this written in the consulting section ki startup interns ki jagah big brand internship solve karo. Now these could be in core, these could be in anything, but try to have one big brand internship on your CV and you still have a couple of weeks. If you can just even start and you can write your intern as June to what present or whatever on your CV. Then apart from that, I would just take a short while on discussing how to write the content of your internships. So firstly, at least I think for neatness sake, you should write your most important internship on the top and naturally spend more number of lines on that than any of the internships that you write after that. Uh, so for example, यहाँ पे ऊपर वाली इंटर्न में 2 ही लाइंस हैं, then नीचे 3 लाइंस हैं. तो I mean, I personally would not recommend that. To go in a clean, neat order, write your best internship सबसे ऊपर, and then subsequently your second or third internships. I would say writing a third internship is just a solve for space. If you think that you are leaving white space in your CV, so you can write a third internship. But if you feel that you have good enough PORs, or like specifically ECS, 3 PORs are recommended. So if you have good enough ECS, then you can skip writing the third intern, because not many of you, like most of you, would not have done 3 interns that are worth talking about a lot in your CV. That being said, how to write the content within each of these interns that you place headers for. There are broadly 2 frameworks. One is the STAR framework and one is the RATS framework, which is exactly the opposite of STAR. So I think Anya covered this already, but this is just some jargon that is usually used to explain this. I'll write it on the chat also. So STAR is situation, task, action, result, and RATS is result, action, task, action, result. action task situation. So like Anya, I would also recommend you to follow the second one where you start with writing the results or the impact of the work that you have done, because then that becomes catchy. And then the action that you took, for example, reading the first line out, achieved 27% reduction. This is the impact. Then by improving of operational efficiency, this is the action. And then subsequently, there is some context that is part of task and situation. So this is ideally how you should frame your internship के points. But I think, and use strong action words. Don't use I mean, led की जगह लोग spearheaded लिखते हैं. You can do all of these things, and again, as in when you do iterations with your seniors, these things will become more clear and more obvious कि कहाँ bolding करना है, कैसे words use करने हैं, क्या लिखना है. But broadly, try to use this, and don't try to GPT this. मतलब GPT gives the worst suggestions about how you can write these lines, क्योंकि तुम्हें वो ओसीएस के हिसाब से फिटिंग भी करनी है कि वो एक लाइन में फिट हो ही जाए. एंड नीटनेस देख लेना, जैसे दिस सीवी ठीक ठाक नीट, ऐसे बहुत सारे वर्ड्स डाल के तुम एंड में डॉलर लगा दोगे तो वो एक लाइन में कंप्रेस कर देगा. बट ट्राई टू कीप इट यूनिफॉर्म, द नंबर ऑफ वर्ड्स दैट यू हैव इन ईच लाइन. दैट वे योर intern section is very neat and easy to follow, and it just becomes easier to see क्या चल रहा है. That's mostly it from my side for the intern section.
In this section, one question from our side was, जैसे आप intern में you said that 2 or 3 interns are necessary. So essentially, if I'm preferencing कि कौन सी interns लिखनी चाहिए, so what would be the preference कि अगर 2 intern लिखना तो किस किस तरह की 2 interns होनी चाहिए? Like अगर मैं 3 intern लिख रहा हूँ तो कौन कौन, like what are the 3 categories of intern that would be best for the
Yeah,
CV?
I think Shiv has already taken this up. I think it's broadly, if you're
नहीं नहीं,
writing, ideally you can have an academic internship, which is like some research internship, whether on-site or a remote one. And your other internship can be a corporate internship. And then a third internship भी लिखनी है, which is effectively a solve for space. So that could be a startup internship or something like that.
got it. Now we can proceed to the POR section. Any one of you can start, madam.
I just want to add two more points for internships. Number one is, as Abhinav mentioned, why people prefer the RATS framework, and this is a word I've heard for the first time, is that dekho, the people who are reading your CV are reading at least 500 more CVs from your campus, right? So it's very helpful if you make it easy for them कि ठीक है, उनको पहले कुछ words में पता चल जाए that okay, this person got this impact, which is in bold, they got this impact, they achieved this, they achieved this. And if they're interested enough to know the process, then they can scroll to the right. So it just, from the readability perspective, just makes it very easy for the person who is scanning your CV. And in consulting, you will follow impact led communication a lot. So it's a good way of starting that practice beforehand. So I would very strongly recommend that you lead with impact in your internship section. That's one. And the second point is, बहुत सारे लोग बोलते हैं कि academic अगर कोई internship है तो उसको consulting CV में लिखने का क्या क्या फायदा है, like is there any point or not. A lot of juniors ask these questions, and there is definitely a point, because if you have achieved some sort of impact in your academic internship also, it just goes to show that you can be placed in any context where you might or might not have a lot of prior knowledge, and you can adapt to that context, and you can bring in your own expertise and bring about some impact. That's what you want to show here in your internship section, that wherever you are put in any corporate or professional situation, you are able to adapt, contextualize and deliver impact. That is the entire point. तो जैसे भी आपकी इंटर्नशिप हो, एकेडमिक हो, किसी डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ स्टार्टअप में हो, प्लीज डोंट फील डिस्करेज्ड अबाउट द कंटेंट ऑफ द इंटर्नशिप. इट्स मोर अबाउट व्हाट यू अचीव्ड. So even if you have an academic internship, if you don't have corporate internships, that is completely fine. ऐसे मत सोचना that an academic internship is not applicable for a consulting CV. That's not at all true.
Now we can switch to the POR section. Shiv sir, you can start. That's fine.
Cool, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think 3 PORs is an ideal number to have on the CV, right? At this point of time. Why, or even people have two, that's okay, that's all right. But the thing is कि देखो यार दो तीन चीजें हैं मुझे mostly cover करनी है. So ideally if you have one third year POR, ठीक है, and dual वालों के लिए चलो थोड़ा different होता है. But yes, on a general note, अगर if you have a good one third year POR and second year की एक दो PORs हैं, ठीक है, even एक भी POR अच्छी है, decent भी है, तो I think that works fine. Again, कौन सी POR से ज़्यादा important इसके अंदर ये होता है obviously कि क्या काम कर रहा है उसमें, क्वालिटी ऑफ वर्क क्या था, what was the impact you brought, ठीक है. So it follows for the PORs as well, just like the internships, right? So perhaps good PORs that off the top of my head जो है मेरे दिमाग में वो यही है कि मतलब obviously क्लब सेकीज की काफ़ी ज़्यादा वैल्यू होती है, QLD सेकीज की थोड़ी और ज़्यादा वैल्यू होती है. उसके अलावा सैक सेकीज, हॉस्टल सेक्रेटरीज जो होते हैं, कल्ट एंड मेंट मेस एंड ऑल, ठीक है. इसके अलावा द नॉन इलेक्टेड PORs जिनको the ones that are good, considered good overall, on the general note, include OCS perhaps, Inactus, and BSP for that matter. Okay, so these are some good PORs, but that's okay if you don't have these PORs. इनमें से कोई नहीं भी है, तो again it is more about the work, it is more about the impact that you brought उस काम में, the position that you held, इसके ना कितना ज़्यादा impact bring करा तुमने, right? So it could even be just one tech club. उसके अलावा कुछ सेकेंड ईयर में कुछ भी हो सकता है, राइट. बट अगेन क्वालिटी ऑफ वर्क ज़्यादा मैटर करता है. 3 आई थिंक इज एन आइडियल नंबर टू हैव. Again, another point that I want to mention here is कि continuity in this section matters a lot, right? So if you were perhaps a hostel rep in the second year and फिर तुम eventually आगे सेकी बन गए, that shows कि तुमने जो करा है उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा मचा है, right? तो that is, even if you did one thing throughout your college life, उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा मचा है. But people prefer having 3 internships कि अगर एक वो कर लिया उसके अलावा they just try to have something else, right? थोड़ा diversify करने के लिए overall portfolio को, PORs को overall. इसके अलावा I think similar frameworks follow here, ठीक है. Impact राज फ्रेमवर्क जो अभिनव ने मेंशन करा था, ठीक है, हाउ सो एवर यू वांट टू पुट इट. इसके अलावा आई थिंक मोस्टली ऊपर ऊपर से तो मैंने कवर कर ही दिया है. अभिनव, आने एनीथिंग यू वांट टू ऐड?
I think I have two very important things to add in this section specifically. First, that we have seen a declining trend on the importance that is given to PORs in your consult CV, which means that if you have heard the narrative ki PORs वालों की consulting लगती है, so that is again being misproven multiple times in the past 2 to 3 years. So please do not think if you do not have an elected third year position, or if you have less positions, that that means that you have lesser chances of getting shortlisted, and vice versa. If you have good positions, then you have more chances of getting shortlisted. And number two, I think people love to oversolve for this section. So there is a ceiling number of points that you can get in a particular section, and having more and or improving more on that section cannot improve the total number of points your CV will get out of, say, whatever scoring matrix is made. So this means that if you probably have one coordinator position in your third year, then making that coordinator position as ऐसे one की जगह दो coordinator positions होने से तुम्हारे number of points उस section में probably बढ़ नहीं जाएंगे. So like Shiv said, you are good to go if you have one third year position, two second year positions, or one second year position, one first year position, or whatever. And that is good enough. Like, stop indexing more and more on that. If you have an elected SECI or an enactus BSP OCS third year position, then that is probably a spike. If you and elected position may you can include anything, matlab ment seki, mess seki, QLD seki, club sekis, all of those are valuable spikes. And then you, if combined with a second year rep or not, and based on that, if you have a coordinator position, then that's a good to have position, but that will probably not spike your CV section. So for example, if you are a, an economics club coordinator or whatever, so and you were an elected rep in your second year, so you could get say 3.5 to 4 out of 5 in your POR section. But again, there is not a lot of things that you can do now to uh, sort of increase the points you have in this section. So don't think कि ये pass करा लूंगा, वो pass करा लूंगा. And also number three, do not try to fake your PORs by passing fake ट्रस्ट कोऑर्डिनेटर पोजीशन पास करा लिया किसी से, या सेकंड ईयर में आरडीवी मार्केटिंग कोऑर्डिनेटर पास करा रखा है. अगेन दीज थिंग्स डोंट हेल्प बिकॉज दे आर ऑब्वियसली फेक. एंड इनफैक्ट इसका तुम्हें डैमेज ही होगा बिकॉज पीपल आइडेंटिफाई दैट दीज आर फेक पोजीशंस, एंड तुम पकड़े जाओगे तो फिर दिल रेड फ्लैग योर सीवी. तो अगेन ट्रीट दिस सेक्शन एज जस्ट वन ऑफ द 5 सेक्शन. This section is definitely not more important than any of the other sections. And in fact, जितना I got to know in my intern season, तो POR की weightage at least Bain में was just 15% out of 100. So again, just don't be disheartened or overconfident because of how you're doing in this section. And spikes and numbers I've covered. Yeah, I think Anya can take up if she has anything else to add.
No, I think mostly it's done, but just to build on the points that both of you said, अगर तुम प्योर मैक्सिंग कर रहे हो ना तो बहुत एविडेंट हो जाता है. Like if you have a lot of second year PORs in a lot of separate kinds of clubs and societies, it's very evident to the person who's reading your CV. So it's better to have a story, which is a third year and a second year POR, which shows that you followed through in a specific club and you have a position of more leadership, more power now, than having a lot of second year PORs spread across different clubs and societies. So don't try to POR max, that is, don't try to over index in this section. बहुत common myth होता है that consulting myths an absolute essential to have. It's not. It's better to have a stronger story in that section than POR max a lot. I think rest was covered.
Now we can move on to the extracurricular activities section, I believe. Anya ma'am, you can only start.
Manan, I'm actually on in transit right now. If somebody
Okay,
else
okay,
can start,
no,
that would
no
be
worries, no
helpful. Yeah.
worries. Any one of you guys, Shiv, sir, or Abhinav, sir, please start with it.
If I go for it.
हाँ ठीक है. यार सी ECAs में अगेन थोड़ा सा अगेन काफी सब्जेक्टिव है, बट द थिंग इज कि लेट्स से if you have a if you were perhaps a hostel rep in one of the cult clubs, तो उसी के अंदर to build on that story, right, like Anya mentioned, if you have ECAs in the same club, तो that holds a lot of value. ECAs again बहुत ज़्यादा लोग फेक करते हैं, वो अगेन पता चल जाता है यार, ठीक है. जिन लोगों के पास ECAs नहीं होते हैं, people try to cover them up through case competitions, but obviously यार सेकेंड ईयर के एंड तक पहले 2 सालों में तुमने कितने ही केस कॉम्स कर लिए होंगे. तो अगेन इन माई ओपिनियन दैट इज कम्प्लीटली अ फिलर, ठीक है. Ideal ECA sports या फिर any cultural activities या even perhaps school time पे if you were acing in any sport या फिर कुछ लोग archery करते हैं, ठीक है. Those types of things, जैसे मैं personally योगा में nationals हूँ तो उस time से मैं योगा करता आ रहा हूँ, right. So stuff like that also matters, right. जैसे sports इस CV में particularly लिखे हुए हैं, तो even if you have like let's say 5-6 ECAs in any one of the sports or couple of sports, right? या फिर उसके अलावा तो that I think that somewhat gives you 50-60% of the total score. बाकी again थोड़ा बहुत basic narratives भी नहीं बोलूँगा मैं. Trend that has been followed is कि QLD ECAs hold a lot of value, ठीक है, followed by other cult ECAs, ठीक है. Sports के ECAs hold a lot of value, like McKinsey particularly prefers people जिनके sports के ECAs ज़्यादा होते हैं. That has just been a trend that is there, right? And Bain थोड़ा सा prefers people with QLD scores, right? So these are a few narratives. इसके अलावा case competitions again यार, just to reiterate, I think मेरे opinion में तो pretty much filler ही होते हैं. So it is but that's okay if you don't have a spike in this section, which a lot of people don't, trust me, ठीक है. You can just try to fill it up using different ECAs, even तुम्हारे school time पे भी जो थे, that works out, that's okay, ठीक है. But overall यार POR and ECA section go hand in hand in the sense कि overall if you're able to bring about a good storyline, ठीक है, through these two sections, so that is one of the very good points. Even मेरे interview में भी, right, I think second round में my interview was around one of the PORs that I had, right. So bringing about a good story, bringing about the best of the impact is very important over having the XX narrative wale good PORs and ECAs, right. So I think that is pretty much it from my side. बाकी ECAs में even like I mentioned previously, social endeavors लोग as fillers add करते हैं, ठीक है. NSS वगैरह के ECAs लोग add करते हैं, and then you can have people write down mentor as one of the ECAs. People write down different hostel ECAs. कुछ पेंटिंग का ECA हो गया, वॉल पेंटिंग वाला ECA हो गया, या फिर BHM के ECAs होते हैं, right. Again in my opinion those are just filler ECAs, but again if you don't have a lot of good ECAs तो that's okay. मतलब हर section again spike नहीं होता है. 3 spikes in the overall CV are good enough for you to get a shortlist. I think that's pretty much it from my side. Abhinav.
Anya, do you want to
Yeah.
continue or should I go first?
I don't have a lot of points here. I think we just try to build your story here. So QLT ECAs have a weightage. But also if you're doing something outside college which is exceptional, like Shiv mentioned yoga, yeah, just archery, classical dance, classical music. Even if it's a non-college achievement, it's fine to write it. Matlab you should if it's a distinctive achievement. That's first. Second, जो भी आपके social endeavors होते हैं या mentorship, all of that does seem like a filler. So try to keep those to a minimum. Case studies also do seem like fillers because that is not the expectation from engineering students anyway. तो fillers को थोड़ा minimize कर सको तो कर सकते हो. Rest again, when you order your ECAs, like you have to order every other section. Recency bias होता है. कितना distinctive मचा वो ECA है. If it's like an inter-IT ECA or a national ECA, that obviously has more weightage. So look, take care of the ordering as well. And the overall objective of this section is that you should have one or two clear distinctive areas of talent here in your ECA. So देख के पता चल जाना चाहिए that okay, this person is very good in debating and sports, for example. So make sure that your ECAs are clustered and ordered in the optimum fashion. I don't think there's anything else from my side on ECAs. Abhinav, you can continue, please.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with a little bit commentary on how these trends are formed. So, for example, Shiv said that McKinsey prefers people with sports ECS. Now, you might wonder why that is so, because consulting में sports का particularly क्या ही काम है for that matter. So, I think at least my take on this is that these trends are are largely continuous. So, for example, if there are people in McKinsey who are once hired who are good in sports, so they might have some biases of their own, especially in when these biases are much more uh, evident कि हर साल डेप्सॉक के लोगों को ही लेके जा रहे हैं, तो वो अगले साल फिर से डेप्सॉक को हाई स्कोर करते हैं एंड फिर से डेप्सॉक के लोगों की शॉर्टलिस्ट आ जाती हैं. So again, these biases are not that strong कि being part of a particular community or so can massively benefit you, but at least that's how I think these trends are formed and how these companies might have slight preferences for sports ECAs or QLD ECAs or things of those sort. I think it's just a product of the alums that have gone there and who are involved in your shortlisting process. Then secondly, uh, comp winner ECAs are the ones that are actually scored and जिसकी मदद से तुम spike कर सकते हो. So this means that if you're writing wall painting winner, then that is a good ECA and that will help you spike. But if you're writing wall painting, sorry, fact trophy में second आए थे because whatever तुमने pass करा लिया है वो, so that is not something that will be counted as a winner ECA. So only competitions or events that you have been a part of as a team or individual are the ECAs that are scored well and will help you create a spike in this section. Again, this is true for, say, anything QLD, sports, BSP, and actors, cultural. Podium ECAs are the ones that gives you points, and mostly participant ECAs can help you if it's an inter-IT participation or a national, international level participation. But usually, you should prefer to write podiums only. And then next on the writing structure, I think Anya also has covered this, that you should try to cluster your ECAs and add some storyline as to this is something that you have continuously done and achieved and continuously achieved something in. So for example, this has 6 ECAs of sports, the CV on screen, and similarly 4 ECAs of 3 ECAs of case comps. तो तुम उसको structure कर सकते हो. You can make a, if you have different clubs के ECAs, so the easiest way to structure them is write a heading called cultural activities and then structure all those ECAs under that. But it is good to have sections like एक अगर तुम्हारा debating का section है या फिर सिर्फ drama का section है, तो those things are good to have. And I would suggest कि don't make it like the CV on screen. Try to make it more neat. तो बीच में लोग एक sort of stick लगा देते हैं which is on the keyboard and उसको फिर यूनिफॉर्मली नीटली स्पेस करते हैं. यू विल फाइंड दिस इन अ लॉट ऑफ सीनियर सीवीज. लेफ्ट सेक्शन में कुछ ECAs होंगे, राइट सेक्शन में कुछ ECAs होंगे एंड वो परफेक्टली अलाइंड होंगे. बट देन ऑल्सो फॉलो दैट फॉर ऑल द सेक्शंस दैट यू मेक. तो अगर स्पोर्ट्स में एक लाइन में 2 ECAs हैं, तो ट्राई की केस कॉम्स की हर लाइन में भी 2 ECAs हों एंड ड्रामेटिक्स की हर लाइन में भी 2 ECAs हों. तो ट्राई टू कीप दैट यूनिफॉर्म and neat. Again, the purpose of this is exactly the same as Anya talked about previously, that it makes your CV very neat and very, very easy to follow through for someone who's going to read 400 such CVs. Uh, or just like a group of 5, 7 people who have to go through 400 such CVs. And lastly, I think good scholars are winners in QLD, sports, BSP, and actors, cultural. I think as Shiv mentions, preferences for each firm could be very subjective based on the people who are involved in the shortlisting process themselves. And then there are filler ECS such as fest, में आखिर थे, teammate थे, volunteering करिए, etc. But I would suggest that it's good to have a section of say 10, 12 VCA lines, even if you have to add fillers. And lastly, one last thing on faking ECAs. Like if you are writing some ECAs जो भी तुमने कहीं से भी पास करा लिया है या फिर तुम जो भी कर रहे हो, फर्स्टली नॉट recommended, बट सेकेंडली अगर फिर भी कर रहे हो तो it is still maybe okay if those are your filler lines, but do not fake spike ECS. For example, do not fake inter-IIT participation, or do not fake ऐसे 5 डेप्थ ऑफ के ECA and तुमने आज तक debating करी नहीं है. Now the problem is that mostly people who are involved in the shortlisting process are your +1 +2 graduated alums. So these people know अभी भी campus के लोग, like for example if Shiv is involved in the shortlisting process for BCG this year, he has a lot of बच्चे who can verify कि किसने क्या किया है क्या नहीं किया है. And worst to worst, अगर कोई डेप्सॉक का ही सीनियर तुम्हारी सीजी उसके हाथ चली गई एंड तुमने 6 डेप के इसी लिखे हुए एंड उसने तुम्हें आज तक नहीं देखा डेप्सॉक में, तो फिर तुम्हारी सीजी सीधा रेड फ्लैग हो जाती है. लाइक अगर तुमने बाकी सेक्शंस भी तुम्हारे गुड इनफ थे टू गेट टू द शॉर्ट लिस्ट, बट यू आर स्ट्रेट आउट ऑफ any chances of getting shortlisted or going ahead in the process. So please do not fake spike ECS.
Do you guys want to add anything else? Yeah, फिर we can move on to the question answers. Hello.
या आई थिंक यार क्लोज करने के लिए मैं तो बस यही बोलूंगा कि ये ट्रेंड्स, नैरेटिव्स, क्वालिटी ऑफ सीवीज स्पेशली जो हैं, ठीक है, मतलब ट्रेंड्स नैरेटिव तो चलो एक चीज हो गई, बट क्वालिटी ऑफ सीवीज लास्ट 3, 4, 5, 6 सालों में ऑब्वियसली जैसे जैसे कल्चर थोड़ा बढ़ रहा है, इम्प्रूव ही हो रही है, राइट. तो जैसे अभिनव मेंशन की सीजीज भी इन्फ्लेट होती जा रही हैं लास्ट 2, 3 सालों में. तो अगेन बहुत सारी चीजें विद मतलब एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ शॉर्टलिस्टिंग विल डिपेंड ऑन दैट अलॉट, ठीक है. faking ECAs, faking PORs is not recommended at all. Faking calls कुछ लोग literally ओलंपियाड्स वगैरह भी फेक करते हैं, ठीक है, नॉट recommended at all. यार देखो ECAs और PORs तो बहुत आसानी से पता चल जाएगा. तुम जैसे आंजा ने मेंशन करा, तुम थर्ड ईयर की एक भी POR नहीं लिख रहे हो, फोर्थ ईयर सेकंड ईयर की 5 POR लिख रहे हो, तो डज नॉट मैटर, राइट. ऑब्वियसली हर एक सेक्शन की एक सर्टेन वेटेज होती है. अगर 50 के स्कोर पे आइडियली सीवी ग्रेड हो रही है तो 10-10 हर सेक्शन की वेटेज है, ठीक है. 10 में से 15 नहीं कर दोगे POR के स्कोर को, राइट. तो इट हैज टू स्टॉप एट 10. तो यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि जितना अवॉइड करो ये सब चीजें उतना बेटर है, राइट. इवन इफ यूर, ठीक है, अगर तुम एक दो EC इधर उधर से पास करा रहे हो हॉस्टल की जस्ट दैट इज फाइन, ठीक है, लॉट ऑफ पीपल डू इट. बट अगेन दो शुड नॉट बी योर दो शुड नॉट बी द ECA जो तुम्हें उस सेक्शन को पीक कराएंगे, राइट. डेप के ECA ऐसे पास मत कराओ रैंडमली, ठीक है, जस्ट बिकॉज नैरेटिव्स हैं कि डेप वालों की आ जाती है, ठीक है. दैट माइट बी ट्रू, दैट माइट नॉट बी ट्रू, बट इट्स नॉट रिकमेंडेड एट ऑल. क्योंकि अगेन +1 +2 सीनियर्स ही हैं जो शॉर्टलिस्ट कर रहे हैं. एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम इन द होल शॉर्टलिस्टिंग प्रोसेस कोई बंदा ऐसा आ ही जाएगा जिसने तुम्हें देखा होगा, तुम्हें जानता होगा, तुम्हारे किसी X1 आसपास वाले को जानता होगा. तो यू गेट माई पॉइंट, बहुत ईजी होता है आइडेंटिफाई करना. सो नॉट रिकमेंडेड एट ऑल. बाकी आई थिंक प्रीटी मच सब कवर हो गए. इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस फॉर अस तो प्लीज गो अहेड. बाकी आन्या, अभिनव, एनीथिंग टू ऐड तो प्लीज गो अहेड.
I think everybody can put in their question in the chat and I'll just read them out one by one and you guys can answer them. So there's one
Sure,
question.
nothing to add from my side either.
Yeah. So there's one question in the chat as of now. If I have two interns at the same time, can I write one of them as research intern in this call section if it's in the process of publication?
I think it's a self-defeating question. If it's an intern, then write it in the intern section. But also, if you have, if whatever work that you are doing has already made it to a publication, then you can obviously write it in a scroll. But if it is in a process of making it to a publication, then that is not something that you have achieved and the section is scholastic achievements. So you probably cannot write things that are in process, your achievements, because you don't know whether or not it will be published.
Okay. There's one question which is very company specific. Is there any difference in making CVs for Westwiz and or Ivy Cap, like the finance CVs, venture capitalist or PE?
Yeah, I think if I'm not wrong, Westbridge to Shayad came for the first time last year for the internship, right? So I don't think there's any standardized template that you should follow. But Ivy Cap भी I think not more than 2 years हुए हैं उसको आते हुए. But this again, yeah, I think subjectively this varies. Some people prefer putting in their analytics की CV, right? Some people prefer having their consulting CV submitted for uh, shortlisting of these companies. But I think in my opinion, अगर let's say Westbridge की तुम डाल रहे हो, so again, it really varies. मतलब it really matters. मतलब section specific है essentially बहुत ज़्यादा, right? As in अगर तुम internships, if you have a VC intern या फिर कोई finance intern रही है या फिर somewhat the storyline of your overall CV is conveying कि बंदा थोड़ा finance oriented है या फिर तुमने CFA करा है तो that could be one of the good pointers, right? Again, there's no, I think, standardized template again, but pretty much similar ideas follow for POR, ECAs, calls, CGPA. I think internships है एक area जहाँ पे तुम थोड़ा difference बना सकते हो specific to these things. You might want to add projects again. ठीक है, people might consider adding projects there. थोड़ा सा ML वगैरह के projects लोग डालना पसंद करते हैं. Again, this is very subjective. Anything to add, Abhinav, Anya? I think that is my take on this.
Got it. There's
I
one
think
question. Okay, just continue.
no, just that I think overall your CV will not change a lot, but project section or intern section may if you have something that is more domain specific, that could help. That's it. Otherwise, I don't think it's helpful to make a lot of variations of your CV. That's also not very optimum. So it's good to have one singular very strong CV, and also if there are some specific variations, those you can have.
Got it. There's one question. Will it work writing Surah in as a call and an intern both?
I think I have seen people do this, and I don't know. मतलब, I think it's probably okay to do that. You can
I
do
think
that.
it's not. Yeah, it's not wrong to do that. Do that. Obviously, मतलब Surah majorly people prefer writing as a scroll, right? तो मतलब वैसे भी लोगों पे scrolls is one of the major bottlenecks that people have. तो Surah को लोग scroll में तो लिखते ही हैं. Again, if you're short on internships and तुमने impactful enough काम करा है, if you have three good enough pointers to present there, so I think you can definitely write it down as an internship. कुछ professors सामने से भी internship certificate दे देते हैं Surah का, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, that obviously varies. To answer your question, I think yes, for sure.
Uh, there's one question. In CV making, can we write two intern at the same time, one remote and one offline? Same timeline, I think he is asking.
नहीं, OCS does not allow you to write overlapping interns. They'll flag your CV. So you can write it as one intern from May to June and second intern from June to present. That is fine. But you cannot write overlapping interns and interns during the semester timeline. So you cannot start an intern from April in your CV.
Okay. Some people try to prefer doing an internship in first year. Is it recommended and can it help in the CV? I think this is from a first year student.
So I think how you so it's okay. Have fun.
I remember Abhinav sir once telling me कि second मतलब Abhinav sir or somebody from the dev कि ये तुम्हारा सिर्फ इकलौता last vacation है, so please don't waste it doing an internship.
Could have been me. Could have been me. मेरे सारे seniors ने मुझे यही कहा था. I mean, if you're actually interested in something and you want to do it in your first year summer, please go ahead and do it. But if you are just doing it for gathering CV points, so probably not worth it.
One question is how do recruiters or applicants differentiate between remote and on-site interns on a CV itself, considering it's a foreign research? मतलब I think to answer this OCS की पहले policy नहीं थी, but as of now you are supposed to mention कि कौन सी on-site थी, कौन सी remote थी, or it was in the process or transit. So that
बट इन एनी
मतलब that
केस
is why
जिनकी ऑन
हाँ
साइट होती है वो अलग से लिख देते हैं, तो फिर नेचुरली पता चल जाता है। बिकॉज अगर रिमोट होगी तो तुम ऑन साइट वर्ड नहीं लिखोगे, बट ऑन साइट होगी तो तुम ऑन साइट वर्ड लिख दोगे, एंड दैट्स हाउ द डिस्टिंक्शन इज मेड। बाकी प्रूफ ऑफ डॉक्स में इफ यू आर आस्किंग कि मेरी रिमोट थी और मैं फिर भी ऑन साइट लिख दूँ, तो उसमें नंबर वन प्रॉब्लम इज दैट पीपल नो कौन कौन बाहर रिसर्च इंटर्न करने गए हैं वाया वर्ड ऑफ माउथ और इंस्टाग्राम स्टोरीज। एंड नंबर टू प्रॉब्लम इज ओसीएस भी ऑल्सो प्रूफ ऑफ डॉक्स मांगता है। इतना तो वीजा वीजा तुम्हें अपलोड करना होता है, बट आई मीन अगेन अगर ओसीएस प्रोसेस को तुम बीट कर भी दोगे तो द फर्स्ट वन स्टिल स्टैंड्स।
one personalized question: what's better to write inactive second year POR or marketing coding acad ladder if space is an issue?
There again, that is, I think, very subjective. Like Abhinav also mentioned, I think mostly majorly तुम्हारी सीरीज जो ग्रेड कर रहे हैं, जो स्कोर कर रहे हैं, वो +1 +2 सीनियर्स ही हैं, ठीक है। तो you're lucky enough अगर तुम मार्केटिंग वाले हो एंड किसी मार्केटिंग वाले के हाथ तुम्हारी सीवी लग जाए, राइट, दैट्स ऑब्वियसली गुड, बट वो पता नहीं कर सकते, राइट। तो ट्राई टू ट्राई टू मेक इट एन ऑप्टिमल फ्रेमवर्क ओवरऑल। पीओआर्स अगर कंटिन्यूटी ऑब्वियसली ज़्यादा मैटर करती है, तो अगर मार्केटिंग लैडर है तो आई वुड से कि सेकंड थर्ड ईयर कंटिन्यूशन लिख दो। इनएक्टिव्स अगर एक है तो उसको मतलब ऑब्वियसली if you were to choose one, but yeah, plan accordingly in my opinion, I would say.
To add on to this question, अगर मेरे पास multiple, like you said 3 PORs is enough, तो अगर मेरे पास multiple ladders हैं तो एक ladder will be counted as 1 POR or will it be counted as 2 PORs if you are considering 3 should be written in the like CV itself?
यार मतलब I don't think that matters honestly. एक है दो है मतलब that does not matter honestly. Obviously अगर दो ladder हैं, दो continuity वो है, and if you have मतलब majorly देखो constraint space में आता है, right? तो अगर मतलब you want मतलब कितना ही not more than I think 12 13 15 lines at best PORs को लोग दे देंगे, right? उससे ज़्यादा तो नहीं देंगे। तो if you have enough space, you might want to cut down the the pointers below the titles to the PORs to 2 perhaps, or even 1 for that matter. तो लोग लिखते हैं continuity दो दो में, but then you'll have to cut down on the lines, right? Obviously content पे cut down करना पड़ेगा।
बट ऑल्सो स्पेसिफिकली फॉर दिस, पहली बात तो इतना ओवर इंडेक्स मत करो। सेकंड, मे बी ACAD itself is not such a shiny POR, and in actors दिखा के तुम थोड़ा डाइवर्सिफिकेशन दिखा सकते हो, considering in actors is usually valued। और मे बी यू कैन जस्ट राइट अ कोऑर्डिनेटर की 3 लाइंस एंड लास्ट लाइन में लिख देना कि तुम ACAD भी थे, अंडरलाइन करके।
Okay. How to create genuine spikes in CV if I feel what I have done till now isn't enough?
यार मतलब I would say मतलब one thing that you need to do right now is कि spend some time analyzing all of the points that you have, right? Spend like 3-4 hours, ठीक है, open a Word doc, just jot down all the points that you have specific to all the sections and try to build a storyline out of it, ठीक है। Understand कि मतलब what brings out the most, ठीक है, from that 45-50 lines की जो CV है, ठीक है। The how you are conveying your story matters a lot, right? तो थोड़ा बैठ के एनालाइज करो, मतलब यू ऑब्वियसली यू आर द बेस्ट जज ऑफ व्हाट यू हैव डन ड्यूरिंग योर कॉलेज टाइम। तो ऑब्वियसली मतलब यू नीड टू स्पेसिफाई, यू नीड टू शॉर्टलिस्ट द पॉइंट्स दैट ब्रिंग आउट द मोस्ट इम्पैक्ट, दैट ब्रिंग आउट द बेस्ट ऑफ द स्टोरी लाइन। सो अकॉर्डिंगली नीड टू प्लान। बट हाँ मतलब एक फंडामेंटल आइडिया यही होगा, अगर बिल्कुल ही क्लैरिटी नहीं है तो बैठ के थोड़ा पेपर पे जॉट डाउन करो यार कि क्या क्या करा है, देन पिक अकॉर्डिंगली। दैट्स माय टेक ऑन
One very genuine question.
दिस।
How do I show the impact of a third year POR considering the work is in future and अभी तक कुछ करा ही नहीं है?
आई थिंक यार ऑनेस्टली दो टेक है इसमें। पहले तो a lot of people write मतलब just write points for the sake of it, ठीक है। In cases like these, even the person who is judging your CV understands कि यार अभी अभी start हुई है, तो they won't expect you to मतलब write perhaps अगर PRCG से लिख रहे हो, they won't expect कि तुमने रॉन देखो को ओवरऑल कोऑर्डिनेटर लिख दिया और मैंने 10 काम करे, राइट। ऑब्वियसली अंडरस्टूड है कि नहीं करा है, तो उतना तो दैट इज वेरी नीड टू ड्रॉ द लाइन, राइट। दैट इज मतलब अगर इफ यू राइटिंग हॉस्टल का कल टू, तो उतने टाइम फ्रेम में जितना करा है उसका बेस्ट कैसे निकाल सकते हैं, यू कैन राइट दैट डाउन, राइट। या फिर 2 लाइन परहैप्स यू कैन राइट डाउन कल टू में, एंड इफ यू आर अ हॉस्टल रैप उसमें 3 लाइन लिख दो। तो Again, subjective है थोड़ा सा, but you need to draw the line somewhere. झूठ नहीं लिख सकते हैं obviously, because कहीं ना कहीं वो पकड़ा जाएगा ही, ठीक है? तो that is.
I
Yeah, I
think
think at least on POR तो तुम शिफ्ट एंड लिफ्ट कर सकते हो, पास सीनियर्स की सीवी
हाँ.
में सेम टू सेम उठा के कॉपी कर सकते हो. प्रैक्टिकल एडवाइस मतलब अगेन दिस इज व्हाट मोस्ट पीपल डू. एंड फॉर इंटर्न्स अगेन जस्ट ट्राई टू थिंक तुमने जो भी करा है या तुमने नहीं भी करा, तुम्हारी टीम ने करा है, तो वो क्या कर रहे थे एंड फिर हाउ टू पुट दैट इनटू अ कंसल्टिंग स्टाइल लाइन. And why that is something though I was trying to touch upon during the intern wala discussion also, that most of you have not done anything significant in any intern that you have done. So it's okay to uh, write fancy lines in whatever way everybody every year writes them. It's okay.
Similar, I
I think
think as long as you're able to justify all these lines during the time of your interview, I think it's fine. लिख दो चार चीजें यार,
हाँ
but फिर
मतलब be
justify
ready
करना आना
for
चाहिए उन्हें.
cross questioning on
हाँ,
that. फिर ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि ये तो
क्योंकि
मेरे मैनेजर को पता होगा.
you can क्योंकि obviously expect cases around your PORs, cases around your internships that you've done, right? So that is something.
last question for today. How much is a minor degree in DMS helpful for consulting?
It's a good call.
Uh,
I think it's one of the good calls. Again, ये
I
subjective
think
take ही
the
होगा इस पे तो.
I think the question here is that how much it actually helps you on the job and not how much it helps you on CV, I guess.
Okay.
Because CV में तो if that is the question, CV वाला question है तो that you not have for your third year intern. It's an okay call because again minor degrees can be done by anyone and it's not something that you have specifically achieved, especially while you are still pursuing it and वो तुम्हें मिली नहीं है. And secondly to answer कि तुम्हारे intern में actually कितना काम आ सकती है, so that is again थोड़ा luck and chance dependent है. Maybe you study something जो काम आ जाए, but your consulting intern, the projects that you will get are going to be completely random and those could be, again there is no prerequisite. If you have not done any MSLs, so you will not suffer in a consulting internship. You will likely do just as well, but they can help in certain cases if the case context that you are put into is similar to some course outline or some course content. But again, that's not something you should try to solve for. अगर minor करना चाहते हो तो कर लो, नहीं करना तो मत करो. Don't do it because it will help you on the job.
I think thanks a lot, Shiv sir and Abhinav sir. I think we can take more questions. I'll collect the questions and just share a draft with you guys. And अगर कुछ ऐसे genuine questions आते हैं, you can just answer them afterwards. Let's end the session here for now. Thanks a lot, guys, and would love to have you guys another time. Thanks again.
Sure, thank you. If
Thank you for
you
having
want,
us.
you can reach out to Manan, Avin, and such people with more questions,
Thank
or
you,
us
everyone.
directly.
We'll be providing the recording and the MOMs for the meet as well. So chill in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you.